wouldn't change if I could restart. I ain't gonna hide these beautiful scars.
New Year. Hope you had a good time catching up with your family and loved ones. And those of you, for the rest of you, maybe you had a good break. I pray you had a good break. Would you do me a favor? Those of you who are Chinese, you can turn to your neighbor and give your best Chinese New Year greeting. The best Chinese New Year greeting you can give to one another. Do that now. Mine is 快高长大. That is to grow up taller as fast as possible. Well, church, last year we completed the book of Joshua, which gave a good background on how the Israelites entered the Promised Land. And you can catch the whole series on our YouTube channel. Just simply search for Grace Assembly, just subscribe to it, and you can access all our latest resources available on demand. And this week, like what Pastor Victor mentioned, we are embarking on a new collection of messages on the book of Judges and Ruth entitled The Unlikely Choice. Because it seems as though the people that God chose were not your typical hero-like kind of person. And today we will look into the first 3 chapters of Judges. My question, I want to start with this question now. Have you found yourself living with something that you should have removed a long time ago? Have you found yourself living with something, maybe in your house, that you should have removed a long time ago? And for me, it was this bag of old clothes that my wife told me to clear. Husbands, cue, please pay attention. My wife told me to clear this bag of old clothes. She put it near the door before I leave the house. And she said, babe, remember to take this and clear this as you leave. And for me, of course, I'll be like, yeah, sure, babe, don't worry, I'll get it sorted, don't worry. And I go to the door, I see the bag of clothes there, I wear my shoes, I take my keys, I kiss my kids goodbye, and I left the house. And I forgot about the bag. Slowly, I'll come back after a while, a week, I realize, this bag is still there. And my wife will say, what's the bag doing there? You're supposed to clear it. I'll say, yeah, okay, I'll clear it. Then the same thing happens again. The same cycle happens again. I wear my shoes, put on my keys, kiss my kids, and I left the house. And after a while, after a few weeks, that bag of clothes became furniture in my house. This was a vicious cycle for me. And this exactly sums up the book of Judges. You will notice this cycle, that they were going through a vicious cycle as well. So as we go through the book of Judges, you'll notice the degeneration of God's people. They become more evil, more violent, and very disturbing scenes in the later chapters. And the main theme throughout this book is how Israel, as God's people, they remain stuck in a cycle of rebellion. And on the screen you can see this cycle that's been shown to you, where they start off with peace, in the land that God has given to them. But slowly they begin to rebel and sin against God. And then God would allow them to be oppressed. There will be oppression from the Canaanite neighbors. And the Israelites would then cry out to God. And God would then deliver them and raise a judge to deliver his people. And again, then they would receive peace for a period of time in the land. And they will keep repeating this cycle again and again. See, this book of Judges comprises of different individuals who led Israel after Joshua's death. So why the name Judges? What is a judge? A judge in this context is not a judicial judge or someone who pronounces judgment over others. This is a judge that represents someone like a military leader or a tribal chief. And I want to bring this to the title for today. The title is The Unlikely Hero. And the big idea is this: God must be the center of our lives. God must be at the center of our lives. So allow me to unpack 3 observations from the first 3 chapters of Judges. So we pick up from when the Israelites entered the Promised Land, and they were to conquer the remaining parts of Canaan that the Lord had instructed them to do. So we read in Judges 1, it says, after the death of Joshua, the people of Israel inquired the Lord. See, the author put this first line there for a purpose. Joshua was a symbol of someone that had believing loyalty to God and someone that left a strong legacy of faith for Israel. But the people of Israel soon forgot that Joshua had commanded them to do specific things, and they were unfaithful towards God. We see this in Judges 2 repeated. It says here, and the people served the Lord all the days of Joshua and all the days of the elders who outlived Joshua, who had seen all the great work that the Lord had done for Israel. And Joshua the son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died at the age of 110 years, and they buried him within the boundaries of his inheritance in Timnath-Heres, in the hill country of Ephraim, north of the country of Gaash. And all that generation also were gathered to their fathers. And there arose another generation after them who did not know the Lord or the work that he had done for Israel. Friends, Israel's downfall happened when they disobeyed God and forgot who he was and what he had done. See, before the Israelites entered the promised land under Moses' leadership, God already instructed them to never forget. We see this in Deuteronomy 6 verse 12. It says, then take care lest you forget the Lord who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. God's instruction could not be any clearer. The Israelites were told to remember God and his covenant, what he had done for them, and to simply obey. Yet with these clear instructions, the people of God failed to remember. And this brings us to our first observation, and that is failure begins when we forget. Failure begins when we forget. Judges 2 says, and you shall make no covenant with the inhabitants of this land. You shall break down their altars. This is God speaking to his people. But you have not obeyed my voice. What is this you have done? See, it took the Israelites one generation to forget the Lord and what he had done. And Joshua represented the generation that obeyed God faithfully. And with the end of Joshua's life came the start of Israel's failure. Because this was further emphasized in Judges 3, when God began to raise different judges to deliver his people, like Othniel and Ehud. We see this in Judges 3, 7 and 12. It says, and the people of Israel did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. They forgot the Lord their God and served the Baals and the Asheroth. And then again later on when Ehud was raised, and the people of Israel again did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. See, throughout the time of Judges, the people of God would repeatedly forget. They would get stuck in this cycle of rebellion. And the question we need to ask ourselves is this: how did this even happen? How did the next generation not know about God? I believe that the reason was because the people of God were not diligent.